Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great night. Got another fun, exciting episode of our live streams, and I'm trying to get some content and prepared for the live streams as I do this. Meaning that normally I've a lot of live streams I go talk. There are some topics that everybody talks about, and we get some chats going. I'm a little concerned that there aren't tons of people in my chat, or there may not be tons of people in the chat. So I've prepared a bit of a presentation, like I did last week, on a topic that will at least fill in some of the time while we're spinning up and getting everybody going in the chat. And so tonight we're going to be talking about short-barreled rifles versus pistols, and it should be a fun time. So just want to quickly say hello to people in the chat. So we've got Unit 4 here. Hey, Unit 4, nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by. We have Disastrous Effects in. Awesome. And then Unit 4 says we had 8 confirmed tornadoes Saturday evening here in southeast Wisconsin. Dang, that is flipping scary. That's some scary stuff. I don't like messing with that kind of stuff. And it makes it dangerous, right? And so, golly, hopefully you have a place that you can get to that's safe and yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get going on our presentation tonight, and I am just going to share the screen over here. All right. And if my little camera in the window gets in the way, then we will shut it off and just go with the presentation. So we're going to talk about short-barreled rifles and pistols. Last week we had a discussion on suppressors, and there are some overlap because they are governed by the National Firearms Act and then some subsequent laws. And this will probably be the last one. I'm not going to go into machine guns. I have no expertise in that at all. And I would say for silencers, I own quite a few of them. But in terms of short-barreled rifles, I have one, and I've been through this process once. So certainly will be more of you who are more familiar. But I thought I would share the things that I picked up on this, and then as I lurk in other people's channels and I, hear people talk and I see what's posted on Reddit, I think there are some things that need to be discussed in this channel, and so in this chat. So I'll cover those. So let's get into it. So if you're not familiar, what's a short-barreled rifle versus a pistol? And so this is just an orientation. So you can see on the top, a pistol essentially doesn't have a stock. So even though that section looks like a buffer tube, and you can use it, you can shoulder it, right? But it doesn't have something that was designed to be the stock. The buffer tube was designed to hold the buffer that allows for the function of the gun. That's why it's allowed to be there. But other than that, it's supposed to be shot one-handed or two-handed as per design of the pistol. But a short-barreled rifle is something we're going to get into, and it's a technical term governed by the National Firearms Act of 1934. So we're going to get into that a little bit, but I just want, in case you were like, I don't know what an SBR is, I don't know what a pistol is. And by the way, the SBR in the United States is illegal to own, excuse me, unless you have gotten permission from the U.S. government. And then it's titled an SBR, and there's a whole bunch of rules you have to follow, and you have to pay a tax to get that. And it looks like Jorge Solis just said pistol brace rule was just done away with. So we'll get into that and as we talk. But in short, the ATF just had made some changes to declare basically a lot of people's pistols were actually SBRs, and was going to make some estimates between 20 and 40 million Americans felons overnight by their ruling. And they gave some grace period and allowed people to go in, but there was some like 1-2% followed the grace period and actually registered their guns and got the free tax stamp, so to speak. And so that happened. Then there's been some injunctions, and I believe last week the ruling was vacated by the Ninth District. So there is no national the rules that were governed. So we're back to pistols and SBRs. So I thought I would go through that right now. So let's talk a little bit about how the heck we even got into any of this. So the history in the National Firearms Act in 1934, during Prohibition, so they asked for, or the country passed an amendment that it was illegal to sell alcohol. And so during that time was called a Prohibition, and they saw a huge rise in organized crime. And then organized crime started using automatic weapons, which you could at the time buy for about $200. If you catch my drift, what does that $200 coincide with? That coincides with the tax stamps that were charged. So tax stamps were meant to be 100% tax and price it out of what common criminals could get their hands on. And in particular, what stood out in a lot of people's minds was a few kind of big kind of shoot 'em up type things and events. One of those was the St. Valentine's Day massacre, where a couple of gangs, one of them was Al Capone's, another one was which was an Italian gang, and there was a Northern Italian or Northern Ireland gang, and basically Capone's gang came in and basically that, first of all, they acted like they dressed up and acted like police officers, and then they just basically executed and killed their rival gang members. And so around the time of 1934, Congress really wanted to act, and they wanted to get engaged and do something, as all politicians want to do. And here, maybe I will turn myself off so you can see this busy page. Whoops, it's not gonna do it. Got to get over. Here we go. Just 1 second. There we are. All right. So it's interesting as you go back into the history, and I did some digging in preparation for this. You go through the history of this. There is some acknowledgement in Congress that Americans still had a Second Amendment, and so they wouldn't want to ban weapons, but they wanted to ban easily concealed weapons. So rifles and shotguns shorter than 18 inches, pistols, machine guns, and silencers. And the kind of crazy thing is on silencers is going back through the transcripts of I think it's the 73rd Congress, it's only mentioned once. There was a Mr. Fuller, who was a committee member from Arkansas. Representative said if a man is carrying that type of weapon, if he is not an officer, he ought to be taken into custody anyways, because we know that he's carrying it for an unlawful purpose. I'm referring to such a weapon as a sawed-off shotgun or a machine gun or a silencer. Right, so that's kind of gives you the mindset that we were dealing with back in 1934. That hey, if you're carrying one of these things, you're probably going to commit a crime, so we should arrest you. Which is really an odd statement to be making for a country that says innocent until proven guilty. Right. At any rate, well, and at the time you get it that early in that law was that they were going to ban pistols because they were concealable. Well, enter the NRA. When they were first talking about doing pistols, the NRA hadn't showed up. The NRA came to advise the committee, and they really kind of screwed up. So the NRA agreed on silencers. They agreed on machine guns, but they really objected to pistols. And so pistols were removed from the law. And I'll get into that about why is that important, because that gets into some of these barrel lengths and other things like that. So just kind of talking out there, disastrous effect. We talked about the injunction, how I believe that's been vacated. The law has been vacated. Jorge says, I live in a small red county. Cops don't care about ATF ruling, thankfully. Well, that's the best place to live. And then Uncle Dan is back. Hey, so nice to see Uncle Dan. Nice seeing you in the chat tonight. So it says, so getting back to the promise or to the discussion, the NRA EVP shows up and they saved us on pistols, but they screwed us on machine guns and silencers. So I guess it could have been worse, but I guess I would have wished they had caught that, because the only mention of silencers was what good could anyone do with a silencer, right? That was the attitude. Hey, what good is it at all even having one? You're clearly up to no good. There wasn't like a record of the mob using them in crime. There wasn't them, they weren't being used in crimes. There wasn't like, hey, we got this big problem of silencers. It was the fear of them. It was the FUD factor, right? That these could be used, and so they banned them. Or they didn't really ban them. They said you have to be this rich in order to get one. Basically, you have to pay the tax stamp. So is that a form of discrimination based on income? Absolutely. All these laws are discriminations based on incomes. It's okay if you're rich because you can afford the tax stamp, right? So that's that's what they're doing. Okay, so getting into the 73rd Congress in session. Again, it was the 73rd Congress, second session, and I took some excerpts. Someone took the time, username Cooking Without Water in Reddit, posted a really great summary of a lot of the transcripts from that Congress where they created this National Firearms Act. Apparently, there were several ladies' organizations and prominent women who are lobbying to remove pistols. But then in the committee that were writing the language of this law, they were like, look, we don't want ordinary law-abiding citizens who feel they need a pistol or revolver for home protection to protect their family shouldn't be classified as criminals and racketeers and gangsters. They shouldn't be compelled to register their firearms, and they shouldn't have their fingerprints taken, and they shouldn't be in the same class as gangsters and racketeers. And so they acknowledged that self-defense was a primary reason to own a pistol or revolver. And I think that's interesting, even, and it shouldn't really shock you because that was going back to our founding fathers, that firearms were a right, and that's why they were enshrined in our Constitution, an unalienable right that wasn't supposed to be infringed upon. So that gets us. So what they did then is they went in and they removed the word pistol and revolver from the law, and that's where they were kind of getting in. They had pistols defined, and then they only left rifles in that weird definition of 18 inches, and that's going to get back to us later. There's a funny story on that 18 inches because you say, wait a second, Trigger Bar, it's 16 inches. You're screwing up. It's not 18, it's 16. Hold on. We'll get to that. So again, it was to put an excessive tax on ownership. Again, it was to double the price of a machine gun, which was at that time $200, and required people to register machine gun silencers and shotguns that were shorter than 18.5 inches. And it wasn't until the Gun Control Act of 1968 that they decided to say, well, actually, for rifles, that's 16 inches. For short-barreled shotguns, still 18.5 inches. And the funny thing about that is the government had just started their just released a whole bunch of guns through their CMP program, Civilian Marksmanship Program, a whole bunch of M1 Garands that were 16 inches, and they had just sold thousands of them to the public. And then someone said, wait a second, we just made a whole bunch of people felons overnight. Because the government sold them without tax stamps, without even thinking through this whole thing. So they, as part of the Gun Control Act, which included some other things, 1968, they included background checks and other things like that. They actually reduced the restriction from 18.5 inches to 16 inches as a mea culpa for suddenly just making thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of people felons in the country overnight because of their goof up. Let me get back here. Let me see if I can get my ugly mug back on the screen. So let's go on. Keep going. So and let's start talking about pistols. So pistols are not regulated by the NFA, and I got this from the Gun Trust Guru website. They're in fact they're excluded from the definition of any other weapon. But if you add a foregrip to the pistol, so if you weren't aware, you can add a foregrip to your rifle, right? Something that's coming down off the end of the barrel, something for you to hold on to, something for you to index your hand on. You see this on all the cool gun guys and high speed operators, all so on and so forth. You if you add that to a pistol, it makes it an any other weapon, which is regulated by the National Firearms Act and does require a tax stamp. It says, this website, the Gun Guru, says if the overall length of 26 inches or more, if it's longer, the overall length is longer than 26 inches, and it's not capable of being concealed, and you add a foregrip to it, you're probably okay. Except if you actually try to conceal it, then it does become an any other weapon. And so here's my take on this. Don't add a vertical foregrip. What that means is vertical is it connects to the gun at a 90-degree angle and comes straight down off of the barrel, off of the handguard of the gun. If you do that, you've just made an any other weapon, and you need a tax stamp with it, just like an SBR. So if you really have to have a vertical foregrip, you should go the route of an SBR. And just SBR your gun. Once it's an SBR, short-barreled rifle, you can add whatever grips on the front, and you can add whatever stock on the end. And again, I'm not your lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not anyone's lawyer, and this is not legal advice. So, but that's my take, is that I don't even trust the angled foregrips. They have things, because the law says you can't add a vertical foregrip. So if you put it at a slightly different angle, is that no longer vertical? Yeah, probably not. And I think the ATF has said not, but like, I don't know if I can trust them, right? So I just wouldn't put it on there if it's a pistol. Okay, so we're going to talk about, and then we'll get into what differences of pistols are and other things like that. And let me get my my screen, my mug off the screen. So how do you own or create a short-barreled rifle? And we'll get into why later. And just checking the chats, Uncle Dan, it's good to be seen. Absolutely. And he says M1 carbines are 17.5, if I remember correctly, and that may be. I learned what I learned about the M1 carbines being shorter than 18 inches or whatever, and maybe that's what it was. From, I think it was Forgotten Weapons that I learned that little tidbit of information. But I thought that was pretty interesting. So 17 and a half, shorter than 18. And everyone was going to be a felon if you bought an M1 Garand. Yeah, at any rate. So how do you get and own a short-barreled rifle? So one, you can buy them at a store. Maybe not every store sells them, but there are stores online. There's probably local dealers that can sell them. And it's just like buying a suppressor. So if you go back a week ago and watch my live stream on how to buy a suppressor, it's the same process. You have to submit a Form 4. You have to submit fingerprints. You have to submit a picture of yourself. You're essentially, the rifle that you buy will go into this FFL, Federal Firearms Licensee, someone who's licensed to sell these types of guns, that are going to their safe and their protection until you get approval from the ATF, and then you can go and collect it from them. And once you have the stamp and a whole bunch of other kind of things you got to bring with you on that day that we covered in last week's discussion. So that's, you can go that route. That's certainly a route. Okay, then the other option is you can make one. So with an existing rifle or pistol, you fill out the Form 1, which is to make a restricted item. Form 1 is make a restricted item. Form 4 is transfer or buy or bring into your possession a Form 4. Looks like we got Pistol Pete and Craig M in the chat now. How's it going? Pistol Pete asks, who can keep track of all the rules and regulations these days? It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. That's why I thought I might do this. Hey, Craig, how are you doing? Uncle Dan's headed out. Hey, have a good one. Thanks for stopping by. I do appreciate it. So you can make one with an existing rifle or a pistol. You fill out a Form 1, and you submit that to, and so you have to own the rifle or pistol. And then you fill the paperwork out. It's a Form 1. It's often much faster to get approved a Form 1 than it is a Form 4, even nowadays. And so you fill out that form. You're going to have to put in the serial number of your rifle or pistol that you currently have. And if you're making one from scratch, let's say you're a machinist or something, I think you have to build the lower receiver, or you have to build some aspect of it so that you can submit that serial number to them. You're going to then submit a new serial number with it. You're going to, like Trigger Bar Philosopher 001 or something like that, right? And that will be your new serial number for your new gun. And at that point, you submit it. So at that point, do not build it into a rifle. I just want to put this in there. Don't add a stock. Don't replace the barrel. Wait till you're approved. Once you are approved, right, you've got your tax stamp, everything is there. Still, don't modify your gun and post it on Reddit. I've seen tons of people doing this. Post it on YouTube. They got their Form 1 approved. They slap a stock on it. They put a new short upper, a 9-inch upper, a 10.5-inch upper on their AR. They're like, sweet, man, I got myself this. There is one last step that you have to do. You have to get the gun engraved. You have to have, like the maker's name on it. Which is either your name or the trust's name. And again, for all the same reasons that you wanted to create a trust with a silencer, you may want to create a trust for your short-barreled rifles, because when you die, no one in your home is legally allowed to have them unless they are on that tax stamp, and then your thing needs to be destroyed or turned into the AFT or something like that. So hey, we've got Ninja in Flannel. I just discovered his channel. Thanks for stopping by. I do appreciate it. We hit the same gun range, and so everyone check out Ninja in Flannel's channel. So he does a lot of cool content there. So, but again, yeah, you have to get your rifle engraved with your maker and the city and state that you're in. And so, I think you even have to put in, kind of what part it is or whatever, what number it is on there, but I can't remember that. So let's just, it's you as the creator, and then the city and state that needs to be engraved on it. And there are shops all over that do it. You can look this information up on the website. Don't just trust me, but they can get all of that done for you. Maybe not the shop that you bought it with and that's helping you through it, but there are a lot of gunsmiths and a lot of places that will do that engraving. There's no special place. You don't have to go to a gunsmith to get the engraving done. You could even buy, like, I don't know, something that can. I've seen people that have bought little things and just engraved it themselves into the aluminum lower. I tried to get mine professionally done when I did it, so it looks nice and doesn't look like I did it myself. So get it engraved. Now after you're engraved, you have your tax stamp, it's engraved. You can now add your stock. You can add your shorter barrel. You can, add the upper receiver. And Disastrous Effects says they sell letter stamp kits on Amazon. Blindside, hey, how are you doing? Thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. And then Disastrous, they sell these stamp kits on Amazon. I'm sure you can do something as long as you can engrave into metal. You could follow that and do it. So you now have your short-barreled rifle. Yay, life is good. Okay, well, now what? So there are a bunch of rules that you got to kind of know and make decisions. Hey, Chris, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it coming too. Chris Crest, he has a great channel. Blindside has a great channel. Disastrous Effect has a couple of videos up, but he says he's not making a channel. But appreciate you guys coming and stopping by. So now you have your SBR. Now what? Well, there's some rules that go along with it. Like a silencer, you have to have that tax stamp with you at all times. Now, I've seen things online that say you can have it stored on your phone. I just have copies of all of that stuff in my range bags and in my cars so that in case I'm driving anywhere with it, I have it. Now, the tricky part about SBRs, and I think it's true for any other weapon and short-barreled shotguns, is you have to, if you cross state lines, you have to get quote unquote approval to take that short-barreled rifle with you. And there's another form for it, as always. Even back in the days when Form 4s and other things took like 18 months to get approved, these travel forms, are a week or 2 weeks worth of approval before you get something back. So it really doesn't take that long to get that. And then the cheat code on this is when I travel interstate a little bit more with the rifle, I would say, I'm going to my son's house, or I'm going to my daughter's house, or I'm going to something. And then I would say, and then you list the travel time. I'd say January 1st to December 31st. And then, and I put in all these places at the beginning of the year where I'd probably be going, and that's okay. Right. Because then when I get pulled over, they say, oh, you're traveling with an SBR. Do you have approval? Here's my approval. You're within the dates. You're on the road to that location. Everything's copacetic. So I just want people to know that these things come with some interesting tales on them. Then also I don't even know if any of you guys can read this, but there's some legality of SBRs. So in California, you can own an SBR, but you have to have a dangerous weapons permit. And I guess those are rarely ever granted, if ever. Illinois, you can only, it's only legal for people who have a Curios and Relics federal firearms license. So basically no. In Maryland, the overall length, even though it's an SBR, has to be longer than 29 inches, unless manufactured before October 1st, 2023. So there's looks like a new law that was put in. Minnesota, SBRs are prohibited unless it's a Curios, designated as a Curios and Relics, probably pre-1900 type firearm. Delaware, it's legal everywhere except within the city limits of Wilmington. Michigan, I guess all pistols have to be registered with the police, and so this falls into that. Even an SBR has to be registered. And then Canton, Washington D.C., Canton, Hawaii, Canton, New Jersey, Canton, New York, Canton, Rhode Island. So let's keep going. So we've got some comments going now. So let's see. Says, yeah. So I think Chris was kind of saying, I do something similar, keep multiple copies of my tax stamps and multiple range bags and electronically. Yep, that's great advice. ATF is quick with the travel requests. That's very true. Blindsight says, why so stringent for an SBR? You don't need to do that with a handgun. Well, again, this is the law for all of this was really put in place in the 30s when there was just a whole bunch of hullabaloo about these gangsters and the criminal element coming from prohibition. And they just put in these crazy laws to really try and dissuade it. And ironically, it was mostly about concealing. And they originally did want to ban pistols, but pistols at the last minute, because of the NRA, got removed. I covered this earlier in the broadcast, but just wanted to hit on that again for people joining late. So Chris says, the registry and Ninja and Flannel says because the government sucks and never makes sense. Ain't that the truth? And Pistol Pete says they want control. Force says, what's the performance sweet spot for 223, 556 as far as barrel length? When is short too short? So I've heard that like beyond 10.5 and even 10.5, like you want 11.5 and longer is what I've heard. There's a lot of debate out there. I'm sure there's some others out here. In fact, probably Ninja and Flannel looks like he's answering that lower in the chat. So he's good guy to answer that. And so he's saying 10.5 is the bare minimum. Yeah. So I think, again, the cartridge was designed around an 20-inch barrel. And so But there's lots of great performance, really down 11.5, 12.5, all of that, and even 10.5 is. I wouldn't want to get shot with it. So Jorge says they're so blank about it because they couldn't get the Glock broke down on video. Yeah, that was pretty funny, Jorge. I saw that too. That was pretty funny. Yeah, so the hoopla over SBR, and that's the pistols are over, right? So you can, and I'll get to that in just a second. Let me just get to some of these other comments. So DA is shorter and harder on the action. I think so, but a lot of people have tuned those actions pretty well. It's just really more important to get the tuning right when you get down to 11.5. Let's see. Jorge says 5.56 is very velocity dependent. Very true. Fragmentation occurs at 2,500 and hydrostatic shock occurs 2,000, 2,200. And at 500 plus pounds of energy. So very true. So speed kills, right? And so that's really important. And you need that barrel length to get that speed. And if any type of distance, these are light bullets, lightweight bullets, so they lose velocity fast. Pete says I heard if your rifle dispenses gumballs and it's banned from being a gumball machine. That would kind of stuck. I mean, I like gumballs. So, all right, well, let's keep going on. I have just a few more topics to cover. So let's get into pistols, right? So we talked about rifles, short-barreled rifles, but now everyone's kind of interested in pistols, right? So let me get over and get that out of the way. So just to catch everyone up on the pistols and what are we talking about? 2012 U.S. Army vet, invents a new design, a pistol brace, and he got it approved by the ATF. It said, yeah, if you add that to a pistol, that does not make it a short-barreled rifle and does not make it a rifle. And he really did it because he was a disabled veteran and wanted to give people that have only one arm and are disabled individuals the ability to shoot these larger pistols. And so for the most part, all these guns with these pistol braces fall under National Firearms Act. So following the approval in 2012, a lot of companies started doing this and they all got letters from the ATF approving it. And then ATF issued new rules around the definitions of a rifle in 2023. Of course, there's lead up to it in 2022, talk of it in 2021. And in 2023, the new rules came out. Of course, later in 2023, there were injunctions. If you're a member of this, lobby group, for lack of a better words, or that lobby group. And pretty soon, basically, anybody who owned one pretty much got an injunction. And then recently, it's at least my understanding, was that a Ninth Circuit court vacated the ATF ruling, which means it's not in effect at all because they violated the Administrative Procedures Act, which says there's a couple of things. It says, one, government can't, or the executive branch can't make law, and two, there's a set of procedures you have to follow, and you didn't do that. So at any rate, so that's where we're at. And again, this is a picture of what a pistol brace looks like. You may not know that, having seen all these YouTube videos, because so many people shoulder it. But the ATF said it's okay if it's shouldered. It was designed to be a pistol brace and to be shot this way. And again, this goes back to, or I'm going to get to it, design intent actually has a fair amount with a precedence with the laws in pistol braces, or sorry, in SBRs and in pistols. So, yeah, so we'll go on. So it's a pistol, but what's the difference? So, just for people to kind of follow with, if you aren't familiar with this, you cannot convert a rifle to a pistol. So again, this is really kind of, think about an AR-15. That's just the easiest way to think about it. I'm sure there are other rifles and things and pistols where this gets like this, but it gets super complicated with the AR-15. So if you have a gun that was originally manufactured as a rifle, and there's some evidence that it was originally manufactured as a rifle, meaning they go to the store that you bought it from and they see that item was sold as a rifle and was sold to you as a rifle, then that thing is a rifle. If you put a pistol stock on it, take the stock off, you put a pistol brace on it, and you put a short barrel on it, you have just created an SBR and could be arrested and charged with a felony, right? So you got to be careful with that. I have seen so many people who buy a lower receiver, and then they buy a with a stock on it, and then they buy a short upper receiver, a 10.5 or 11.5, and then they're like, oh, I want to be legal, so they take this stock off and they put a brace on. The problem is there's a record of you buying that lower receiver with a stock on it, and therefore it's a rifle, even though it didn't have any barrel on it when it came with it. It's technically a rifle. So you can go the other way. If you have a pistol at first, you can then if you have a pistol at first, you can then make it into a rifle, meaning you can put a 16-inch barreled upper on it, and then you can put a stock on it, and that's just fine. You just can't. It has to stay a pistol. I mean, it has to have a brace or no stock or anything on it at the back at all. So you just have to follow the pistol rules. Most states, and the federal government does require, but most states don't require registration of pistols. Of course, there are states, and we kind of in that previous slide, I mentioned several that have those. So some states do have those pistol braces. So you just have to, do have requirements around registering pistols. So that's pretty awesome. Like, so, you can have a pistol in your possession that really, for all intents and purposes, is like these short-barreled rifles. But there are some places that say, oh, you can't have a loaded rifle in your car. Well, it's not a loaded rifle; it's a pistol, right? And so you can kind of skirt around this, and that's why the ATF and others really hated this law, is because in some sense, this whole pistol thing and this pistol brace approval in 2012 gave us a lot of freedoms back that we had lost in 1934. And so that's why the big thing is around, dang, let's just hold on to this thing. Let's hold on to this. So I think I missed a couple things on here. Let's see. You cannot add a barrel to a pistol and add a stock and make it a rifle. Or you can add a longer barrel and make it a rifle. I covered that. You cannot put a shorter barrel on a rifle, remove the stock and add a brace and make it a pistol. I covered that. If you're the manufacturer, meaning you just bought a plain, not, just the blank lower receiver. That's all. There's nothing attached to it. I would just document and get a picture when you get it assembled with a buffer tube and all of that, and put a pistol brace on it and take a picture of it and make a note someplace and say, this is me making my pistol, right? Now you have a record that from then on, whether you want to make it a rifle or a pistol or whatever you want to do, there's a record that it started life as a pistol, because that is a thing. Whether it starts life as a rifle, it has to stay a rifle, can't go into a pistol, but a pistol can go into a rifle, then back to a pistol. Let's see. Some of the benefits of this is you can move between states without notifying the federal government if you have the pistol, right? With an SBR, you don't have to, right? So I guess, the commentary is then, why would you ever SBR something? In fact, I was just shooting today with my wife, and I had her shooting a pistol, a brace pistol, and I could see the brace kind of bending as she was kind of holding it in tight. And out of the guns she shot, what did she like? She liked the rifle the most, and I think it was really the stock, because it's firmer and provided better cushioning when she was shooting it. So and then you can add the vertical foregrip on the rifle, so, and on a short barreled rifle, versus you can't do that on the pistol. So there are trade-offs, and this is just something that you're going to have to come to a decision about is it worth it for you? Do you want to give up your fingerprints? Do you want to give up your picture? Do you want the ATF to know that this is what you have? Let's see. I think that might be my last slide. So you're just going to have to make a decision for yourself. Is this worth it or not? And what I would say is, for me personally, this is a great time. If you want something shorter, there's a great time to buy a pistol. And, the likelihood, the more people that buy them, there are some things that are out in the, you can't make overnight 50 million people felons, which, we didn't even get to that legal precedence. So the more people that own these brace pistols, you can't just make everyone felons. There will be no gun grab and going around and collecting them en masse at this stage of where everything is at is just not likely to happen. They're going to do it. They have to clamp down a lot more. They have to get their national gun registry, which if everyone converted their pistols into SBRs, you would have that, is a backdoor to that. So there's just a lot of, now's a good time to buy a pistol. That's really what I'm saying. You can make a decision later of whether or not you want to SBR it. That's up to you. I have done one of mine. I'm on the fence about whether I'm going to do some others of mine that I've acquired. But I at this point, I think that we live in a good time. We have great Supreme Court. Of course, all of these things could change abruptly. You lose the House, you lose the Senate, you lose the presidency, get a few other judges appointed, and then boom, we lose these freedoms. So we just have to stay vigilant in all of this. And I think, in some sense, being patriotic is buying a pistol. If that's what you need to tell your spouse, that that's what you need to do to support the Constitution of the United States, then hey, you got to take one for the team. I'm kidding. So let me just catch up a little bit. I've gotten lost on the chats, and I will get my ugly mug back up. So let's see. Jorge says, Christian says 10-3 is the shortest he'd go with 5.56. Hit the thumbs up. Thanks, Unifor. Appreciate that. Yeah, hit the thumbs up, please. Pistol Pete says registered as in any other weapon. Absolutely, you can do that. And looks like Jorge says 77 grain OTM for my 16-inch. I have 2,097 FPS at 200 yards and 548 foot-pounds of energy at 350 yards. That's pretty impressive. And almost 400 energy foot-pounds at 500 yards. So that's pretty cool. And Jorge, I don't know if I've subscribed to your channel, but it sounds like you do have some videos, or maybe you're talking about someone else's videos out at 1,000, shooting gel blocks at 1,000. Something I want to look up. I thought that was for yours for a second, but definitely something I want to look up. That seems awesome. How could this be so convoluted? Blindside, yeah. Exactly. No, there is no information going to be on the test. Look, I've said this before. If I just have to yap for a half hour, no one's going to watch it. So I thought I've got to try and bring some type of information to the chat, because otherwise I don't know what to say. Disastrous effects saying, wait, there's a test. No test. I'm with Pistol Pete. Joe Biden is, you can fill in the blank. Let's see. Chris Gress, I have so many SBRs, but I like to keep some brace pistols around for quick unrestricted travel. Absolutely. All right. That's a thought for me as well. And then also I will say, I want to do my part to be part of the millions of people that would, be made a felon, and that's against law. You can't make a law that makes everyone immediately a felon. And so I think the more of us, the common use, right? That's kind of our thing. Okay. Someone else's videos, impressive LMS, the channel name. Okay. Video sites, impressive LMS. That's awesome. Chris says, wish I could click on the names in the chat to get their channels. Yeah, I'd want that too. I always struggle with that, especially if you're on a computer. I feel like that's easier, but when you're on your phone, I really have a hard time. Wyoming Gun Project. Hey, how are you doing tonight? Thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate that. Wyoming Gun Project has a great channel. Be sure to check his out. Blindside says, ignorant question here. why wouldn't people just take an AR-15 around instead? So I think what you're saying is, why wouldn't you just take a rifle that's 16 inches around instead? And a lot of people do that. They just don't buy a rifle with a shorter barrel than 16 inches. And because they just don't want to have to mess with any of this, right? Rifles are legal in most places. Semi-auto rifles are not legal everywhere. And so, but they are legal in most places. And so if you want to avoid the law, absolutely. There is just a lot of maneuverability that you gain with a shorter rifle, and actually and then also weight savings that you get with those shorter barrels. So there's trade-offs in all of these things, but that's why, I think for home defense, for manipulating in and around tight corners, you want that shorter type gun. And hey, you could have a handgun and a rifle and you got it covered too, right? So there's nothing against that. So this may not be something that you want to do or thinks that's important. American Outlaw channel. Oh, okay, that's cool. I've seen some of his videos. American Outlaw, lethal at 5.56 at 1,000 yards. That's a cool one. I'm gonna have to look that up though. That's an awesome one. Just everyone saying hi to everyone. Scott79, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Well, we are just about wrapping up here. I appreciate everyone stopping by. Again, just kind of in review, we talked about short-barreled rifles. If you're joining now, you can catch it later if you're so interested. I understand if you're not. We're talking about short-barreled rifles, what's the process of owning them, talked about pistols, why you might own them, the new rules around them or that have gone away suddenly and hopefully and thankfully. We talked about a fair amount of the history of the National Firearms Act. I know I learned a lot as I was doing some research for this. I thought that was pretty cool and fun. But hey, I just want to say I appreciate everybody stopping by. I am trying to do these every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Probably for sure will be next week, but in about 3 or 4 weeks, I'll have to miss a couple. But appreciate everyone. Oh, hey, Scott says 7.62 by 39 does well on a short barrel. That it does. And also its cousin, which is the 300 Blackout, also does well in a short barrel. And so those are all considerations, right? If you want an AK that's a short barreled, and you can get AKs and pistols in pistol format with pistol braces on them. And so Dracos, things like that, they're pretty famous. So there's a lot of great options out there. Unit 4, oh geez, is getting another tornado warning. Unit 4, be careful, man. And Pistol Pete says free flowing is fine. I will get there. I just need more practice before I get there. So I appreciate it. But I'm going to need more help from all of you too to get to the content. Chris Guess is saying hi. Jorge says, yeah, same with Cylinder Blackout and 6.5 Grendel. I wasn't aware of that. That makes sense that 6.5 Grendel is because it's the same cartridge as a 7.62 by 39. It's just neck down to 6.5. So that makes sense. Chris Gress saying, loving the 300 Blackout stuff lately. Yeah, I've been doing a fair amount of that, and it sounds like you're getting back into it as well. And yeah, 6.5 Grendel is a fun one. I've got one of those. I only have one video up on it though. I need to do more videos on the 6.5 Grendel. And Pistol Pete, I appreciate it. But hey, I'm hearing my family. I do at 8 p.m. on Tuesday night because my family is out, but I'm hearing they're coming back. So I'm going to get back up with the family. I hope everyone has a great week. Thank you so much for all you're doing. I will have another video on the 460 Roland coming out Thursday night. Look forward to that. I've got some other content with pistols, rifles, some new guns, some more ballistic gel testing going on. Mrs. Triggerbar came out with me today and we did a video, so I'm excited. She looked at different rifles and PDWs that she was shooting and which she likes. So we tried 300 Blackout, 5.56, 9mm, and 5.7 by 28. It was just a shock to me of which one she would choose for home defense after that outing. So that was pretty cool. But hey, I want everyone to have a great week. Stay safe, and let's get to shooting. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it all. You hit some buttons, and we'll see you later.